strategy tied up with the leader of that coalition, the United States. Obama estimates that that fight will extend to about 3 years. Sometimes people say 5, 3 years. And if I read all the components of what they have been doing, airstrikes were conducted, trainers were working on the ground, the local armies, you have two armies. You have the Iraqi army, which is being constructed, which suffers from factionalism introduced by the American invasion and by the American presence, that's between brackets. Syria, as you know, is occupied with what is seemingly a very hot conflict, almost a civil fight between factions, government, and the image is very vague. And the Kurds, to which Western help has been extended recently, is becoming rather important in the picture. But of course, with a political price for the future, and we have to really look into that, but this is not our theme today. So the image is certain types of operations conducted, certain military help extended, United States to Jordan, for instance, including financial aid, and 3, training on the ground. And this can, in a way, hopefully at its best form, number one, contain the extension of terrorism, contain it, but not finish it, and 2, probably pave the way to a more serious step. But we need a lot of more work. Now, going back to my country, which is the core of my interest, Egypt has to plan. Yes, we are a part of that international coalition, but we should defend ourselves according to our interests.
Yes. Let me take Engineer Shaaban's opinion about this. A few years ago, we started the so-called Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was supposed to bring freedom, justice, social justice, and all the concepts that we believed in at that time. At that moment, or after a few years, we got to learn that this is not the freedom that we wanted, this is not the bread or social justice that we really wanted, and this is not the life that we aspired for. Unfortunately, we were hit to the wall, as they say. But what we are speaking about today is another and a new situation on the ground. We are speaking here about a phenomena that we learned it really exists with all this brutal and ugly face it has now. Now, again, I would reiterate the same question I asked Ambassador Badr about, which is, what kind of strategy, what kind of vision, what kind of actions on the ground made by the superpower United States and its allies of the coalition against terrorism with regard to how things were initiated, how they were funded, how did we reach such a point, and according to their estimation, with 25 to 30,000 troops on the ground called Daesh.
ISIS. Yes.
Please.
First of all, I would like to illustrate on what Mr. Ambassador just said. You know, our Foreign Minister of Affairs is in the U.S. today because they have a conference held to fight terrorism. And he will contribute to this conference. I think we're seeking international coverage for our operation in Libya. This is number one. If we can swing this, this will be a very successful move because we earned it by by losing the lives of our young people in Libya. We have the right to strike back and punish those terrorists. So this is number one. Today, on the 16th of February, there is some military maneuvers made by the US and 6 other African countries in the south of the Sahara, Chad, Niger, Nigeria, all these countries, Western African countries, with the US to fight terrorism. As long as the slogan is to fight terrorism, we need to take advantage of this right away. We need to close, the Prime Minister visited Chad some time ago. I think there is 30,000 French troops in the area, in the south of the Sahara. We need to coordinate with France. We need to coordinate with Chad, Algeria, and use our experience, knowledge about Libya. I think the Libyans require our help. We are not seeking their oil. We do not have any greedy, ambitious ideas. We owe this to our brothers in Libya. We earned our freedom. President Sisi actually helped the Egyptians earn their freedom a year ago. We need to help our brothers in Libya. There is a lot of agreements in the past were signed between Egypt and Libya to unite, to have a lot of. Why don't we activate any of these agreements? That all these agreements were canceled by the disappearance of Gaddafi and Sadat. We need to know, does these agreements fall just after who signed the agreements will go away, vanish, or can we actually retaliate and free our brothers in Libya? We need to know what are we going to do. We need to have a strategy. Talking about ISIS and the fight against terrorism, the US and the allies in Iraq and in Syria. It's, in my opinion, if the US wants to finish the whole thing in a period between 3 and 6 months, they could. But I think the whole idea is to prolong the war in this area, to exhaust everybody, and to apply a lot of pressure over the oil-producing countries to hear what Uncle Sam is saying. I think it was a very strange relationship between Saudi and the US. They were allies, but at the same time, the US is trying to plot against the Saudis with the help of Qatar. I think Qatar is a small country in the area, and I think they love the idea of dividing the whole country to smaller entities where everybody will be in the same pot with the same size.
Rather tiny. Oh, just this one. Yeah. Before we go on with our discussion, let me first have the report on the world reaction. But before going on with the world reactions, condemning, of course, Daesh brutal killing to our 21 Egyptians, the Arab League Secretary General Nabil al-Arabi has condemned the horrific and barbaric crime perpetrated by Daesh terrorist organization against the 21 innocent Egyptians in Libya. The Secretary General, in a statement late on Sunday, called on the international community to take effective measures against this terrorist organization and its ugly crimes that have been committed against Muslims and Christians and the whole human race. Al-Arabi also called for activating the Joint Arab Defense Treaty to safeguard common Arab security and confront terrorism. Arab and world leaders also strongly condemned the incident, and here is the report of the reaction worldwide.
Governments around the world have condemned the beheadings of 21 Egyptian Christians in Libya by the Daesh terrorists. White House spokesman Josh Earnest described the beheadings as a despicable and cowardly murder and called for a political settlement in war-torn Libya. Earnest added that this wanton killing of innocents is just the most recent of the many vicious acts perpetrated by the Daesh terrorists against the people of the region. France's President François Hollande said the killing was savage. Hollande's office said he expresses his concern about the extension of Daesh operations in Libya and reminds of the determination of France and its allies to fight against this group. Hollande and Sisi had a phone conversation during which they emphasized the importance that the Security Council meet and that the international community take new measures against the spread of Daesh in Libya. The UN Security Council also condemned the killing of Egyptian Coptic Christians and offered condolences to the families of the victims and Egypt's government and people. The Security Council, in its statement, stressed the necessity of fighting terrorist crimes that signify a threat to international peace and security in accordance with the UN Charter. Also, Egypt's UN ambassador, Amr Abdel-Atta, said he started immediately contacting member states of the Security Council to issue a tough statement once Daesh revealed the beheading video. Bahraini King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa sent a telegram of condolences to Sisi to accentuate his severe condemnation of this criminal act by Daesh. King Hamad said Manama will back any measures Egypt sees as suitable to encounter such a terrorist organization and support the international community in its endeavors to eradicate Daesh and cut its roots. UAE Foreign Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan said Daesh committed an ugly crime. He said in a statement that the United Arab Emirates is devoting all its resources to support the efforts of Egypt to eradicate terrorism and the violence directed against its citizens, and reaffirmed its total support for Egypt. The UAE top diplomat added that such an ugly crime underlines the necessity of the Arab and international community to stand by the legitimate government and the Libyan people, under the leadership of the elected Libyan parliament and the government it has formed. Sudan's foreign ministry spokesman Yusuf Al-Kordofani offered condolences to Egypt and the families of the beheaded Egyptians, stating Khartoum's solidarity with Cairo. Al-Kordofani said the killing is a heinous and brutal crime that contradicts the rules and teachings of the Islamic religion. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas offered his condolences to Sisi and the head of Egypt's Coptic Orthodox Church, Pope Tewodros II. Abbas declared national mourning for 3 days.
Yes, welcome back, and back to you, Ambassador Badr. And the Arab League Secretary General has spoken about activating the Arab Common Treaty that is speaking about safeguarding the Arab security. And this has been signed decades.
57.
Yes.
1957.
So
If you're speaking about that treaty, I know that quite well. It has been signed, as a matter of fact, between the members of the Arab League at that time, who were, I think, about 7 countries, something like that, 6 countries, because some did not gain independence, etc. But that was it. But it was never really activated in the sense to make it effective or to make it a factor of common defense whereby an Arab country is exposed to danger. That's number one. Directly related to that, which I think is very important and probably eminent as well, is that within the Arab League itself, there should be, hopefully, and we are approaching an Arab summit, a conference and a very clear-cut declaration defining what do we mean by terrorism from our religious perspective. In other words, it would be clarifying the correct Islamic concept of jihad, which has been misused. 2, addressing very harshly anyone that goes beyond that or misuses it. 3, defining the open and welcome relationship between Muslims and the world at large. We are a part of the world, and we are not versus the world. Number 4, how we should all cooperate for the sake of humanity. I mean, these are some of the elements which should be included. So you should have a sort of a clear-cut dogmatic base, probably not for the first time, but it is very timely that that should be elaborated now. And 2, talking about the common defense, yes, coordinating in a better way what we mean by defense, especially that our part of the world, the Arab countries, are harshly exposed to the dangers of terrorism. You see it in all around us.
Let me have Professor Said Amin, Professor at Al-Azhar University. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to join the panel.
Yes. Sir, you have seen yesterday this barbaric act from the so-called Daesh terrorist organization. I cannot even define them as Muslims, but I would really ask you to tell us how, from the Islamic perspective, those can be described as.
Thank you very much for your very good question. To start with, I do join the initiative reiterated a few weeks ago by the Egyptian Darul Ifta that we can call them ISIS, which should be Arabic abbreviation. The Arabic abbreviation for which is Daesh. Actually, they are QSIS. They are Al-Qaeda separatist organization. So the issue of terminology is very important. We cannot call them Islamic, and they are not representing any state in our own world. Regarding your question, these are all despicable acts that have nothing to do with the peaceful teachings of Islam at all. Islam is a peaceful religion, and what those bunch of guys are doing, while claiming that they are representing Islam and Muslims, who are they actually in order to talk on behalf of 1.6 billion Muslims and even more? Who are they? What kind of ideology do they have to slaughter the human beings in broad daylight? Islam, as we learn it at Al-Azhar, is not as what they represent or as what they do. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Indeed, we have dignified human beings. And when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, talked about slaughtering an animal, he called for mercy. But those people, what they are doing cannot be depicted as Islamic action, whatever. They are launching a war out of their own imagination, and against who? Against their own fellow Muslim as well as non-Muslim human beings, against the human beings. They are slaughtering human beings regardless of their faith, race, or geographical location.
Yes. But unfortunately, sir, they are acting on the name of Islam. And they are saying that they are Muslims. And what
this is what we should face against together.
Yes.
Because this has nothing to do with Islam.
Indeed.
What they are claiming has nothing to do with Islam, and this has to be made quite clear in all media. They are not representing Muslims.
Yes.
They are not representing Islam, and they are not, and they are neither Islamic, and they are neither a state as well. They are a bunch of terrorists, extremists, vampires, and bloodsuckers. This is the reality. This is the reality of their actions. From their actions, we can detect them.
May I say something?
Yes, but what I was speaking about is you, sir, are speaking to me. You are speaking in Egyptian state channel.
Yes.
But they are speaking worldwide. They are having their own resources on the internet, on the YouTube, on whatsoever of the new technology.
Yes.
What kind of role should Al-Azhar play at this particular stage in order to present the real image of Islam to the West? And this is from one side. Plus, they are able to recruit youths. They are able to convince and brainwash youths with their own ideologies. What is the role of Al-Azhar right now in order to be able to confront and face those people and avoid or even confront their abilities to recruit those youths, to convince those youths? What?
Thank you very much for your good question. It's an ideological warfare along with the physical warfare. Egyptians today have striked some of their bases in Libya, and in parallel with this physical warfare and airstrike, there has to be an ideological warfare as well, in order, because terrorism cannot be combated just using weapons. There has to be ideological warfare at the same level of expertise and even more. If these terrorist organizations are using technology in order to promote their own ill creed and unjustified and extremist and bloody ideas and ideology, it is an obligation upon all of us as scholars and as representatives, as people representing this great institution, Al-Azhar, as you mentioned, to appear in all mass media and to talk to international media, more importantly, international media. We need to have our voice here, and it's high time to show the real teachings of Islam at this critical stage. Regarding the role of Al-Azhar, Al-Azhar recently, there was an international conference done at Al-Azhar regarding fighting terrorism and fighting extremist organizations and extremist ideology. And a few days ahead, we will have another similar conference organized by the Egyptian Ministry of Endowment as well. And there are concerted efforts that actually
Seriously,
highlight these efforts.
Seriously, Dr. Amin here, if I ask you, what is hindering the mission of Al-Azhar to spread? I mean here to join force with the international moderate organization of Islam worldwide in order to be able to really present the real image of Islam. What is hindering the abilities of the Al-Azhar mission? And I guess Ambassador Badr here wants to ask you another question.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Dr. Amin, I'm very happy to listen to you, but let me please, if I might, you know, while I've worked in many posts around the world, I've had a chance of meeting Muslims here and there from different nationalities.
Yes.
And I'm just trying to describe. Let me say that, number one, the cultural, intellectual atmosphere of Muslims outside what's called the Islamic world is very chaotic.
Yes.
Very chaotic. Part of that is a result of ignorance. Part of that is a result with the inheritance with which these immigrants migrated to these countries, coming from different societies, different cultures.
Yes.
And three, that some have tried to give their cultural habits or cultural beliefs a religious flavor wrongly. And four, because some of the Muslims outside the so-called Islamic world have tried wrongly to identify themselves being a Muslims by following extremist trends. And five, because the literatures you find all over, I've just come from the States and I've seen that lots of times, because I've been there many times and other places as well. Well, you see on some literatures, some papers that make of Islam a summary. You have to grow a beard and wear a galabiya. In other concepts, well, you have to raise a sword and fight everybody. 3, that Muslims are not a part of the world, but they are versus the world. And 4, bringing about very sheer, extravagant habits that try to impose within the societies wrongly. Now, my suggestion is the following.
Yes.
That being the case, I hope, and of course with all due respect to Al-Azhar, there should be an address which tries to explain what is Islam.
Yes.
Something very simple. What is Islam? Number 1, Islam as a religion, as a philosophy, as the pillars of Islam, the relations between Muslims, and that should come from an authority which enjoys respect and credibility, and which should sort of, well, put aside the other literature which is distributed abundantly and which is wrong.
Yes.
And if that should be coupled with TV, with whatever, that would be wrong. I mean, that should be the start. And number 2, to people that can speak languages, go to these places, meet people, and talk to them, because we have that problem as well. Thank you, sir.
Exactly. The ambassador here was reiterating my question in another way, a sort of recommendation, but what is hindering you as sheikhs and scholars to go and preach there in Europe, in the United States, in wherever you can reach out to Muslims and non-Muslims, of course, as well.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you very much as well. There is nothing which hinders Al-Azhar actually. I belong to the university, and I staff at this prestigious university. And this university has sent me in 2007 to get my MA and PhD from the UK. And I have traveled tens of times outside Egypt to represent the institution, as well as to share in interfaith dialogue and to have discussions. And I'm quite aware of what His Excellency Ambassador is suggesting and talking about the ghettos of Muslims who go to France, UK, Germany, representing their own cultures and their sometimes their own village traditions, not just the cultural national traditions, but the village traditions, the very core rural area they came from. And this is actually creating a problem, and they can easily fall victims to poisoned literature, as Mr. Ambassador has just mentioned. The literature is very important, Your Excellency. We need to review our literature as Muslims, and we need to re-study our own cultural heritage and our own Islamic discourse. And we need to interact with what's going on around us. There is nothing actually which hinders Al-Azhar from reaching out to all international media. Al-Azhar has recently formed a center for interfaith dialogue. Some of my colleagues are represented, and some of my colleagues are sharing the information, and some of them have actually went here and there to represent Al-Azhar and to talk about Islam. At Darul Ifta, there are concerted efforts in Al-Azhar, in the Egyptian Ministry of Endowment. This is all what we can do. We carry the ideological weapon, and we, by the way, shouldn't play the reactionary role always. We need to have initiatives and reach out to the people, educate the people, and as well as to talk about current events and see the Islamic standpoint regarding them. What has actually been perpetrated by QSIS, and I call it the Al-Qaeda separatists. they are not Islamic, and they are not a state, has nothing to do with Islam. And we carry this ideological weapon to say to them and their likes, look, what you are doing is bloody, what you are doing is a form of terrorism, what you are doing while you are claiming that it represents Islam and you are talking on behalf of us, look, you are not representing us, you are not part of us, your actions are not Islamic, they are not Islamic, they are not Islamic, and we need to underline this.
Right, never they will be and never they had been. Dr. Saeed Amin, Professor at Al-Azhar University, thank you very much for joining us. And back to you, Engineer Shaaban. And yes, but what Dr. Saeed here did not say is, what are the abilities of Al-Azhar to reach out to people worldwide?
I think,
or to carry on with initiatives, as he said.
Unfortunately, Al-Azhar contributed to the situation we are in today. And I have to be I insist, the Azhar did not play a positive role to spread the merciful look of Islam. I mean, the people who used to travel to Europe and to the US as imam in the mosques over there actually preached people as if they were preaching them in Egypt or in the Middle East. They did not have the right culture. Actually, they had a cultural shock when they went to these countries. There was a clash between the local culture that they buried. I agree with everything His Excellency said. They were not ready to transfer the modern, if I may say so, the modern look of Islam.
Correct.
They didn't, I repeat again, they were not good in language, they were not even good in culture, and they were not prepared to accept. This is what happened to Sayyid Qutb when he went to the US in the early 40s and 50s. He went to a school mission, actually, to tuition over there, and he suffered from a cultural shock, and he came back to Egypt with the new ideas, and he wrote his books. This is what it is. If you send somebody